Let's segue neatly into our news review segment now. And shortly, we will have maybe, just maybe, but let me introduce the guest for now. Victoria Bright, lawyer and entrepreneur. She joins the conversation. We also have Amanda Clinton, head of chambers with Clinton Consultancy. Both of them join the conversation. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I am very well. Both of you are looking smashing, dashing this morning.
Thank you.
I was teasing Amanda about her butterfly dress. Okay, so let's get right into it. But before we do, I made mention of something at the start of the show. I slept through darkness from yesterday on the back of the rain. We called ECG, and we were given some, excuse about the flooding and all of that. And this morning as well, a call was put to them, and then we realized there was a bigger problem. One of the feeds was down. I must commend the ECG's, the operators of the, what do you call those? Customer service, the calls. They are doing very well. When you call them, sometimes you call and you realize they are tired, but, they still are very sober and give you information. But if you slept through darkness yesterday, let me know. Let me know if your lights are on or if your lights are still off and all of that. Let me come to my guests. Did you sleep with light overnight?
I slept with light. I was
you slept
one
with
of the
light.
lucky ones.
You were one of the lucky ones. How about you?
Ghana was one of the lucky ones. We slept with light.
Okay. Yeah. Nice areas. You guys are. You got light. In some neighborhoods, I hear it wasn't that good. Anyway, so let's get into the papers. Amanda, you have the Ghanaian publisher, Daily Guide and Economy Times. But first, let's get into our thoughts for the morning. I'll start with you, Amanda.
Sure. I read a great piece on joy over the weekend inside Mahama's big push agenda, the 10 billion blueprint for Ghana's future, which is, quite hopeful because I think he said that big push contractors will be paid on time. He's promised that. And for anybody who doesn't know, the big push agenda is about housing, road infrastructure, water, youth employment, and rail. And I think, focusing on the youth is really important because I think the youth make up 57% of Ghanaians. And this is very much a redemptive presidency in terms of, for Mahama, it's his second chance to sort of show this legacy presidency. And I think he's throwing down this gauntlet with this big push agenda, which we really hope to see a lot of. 10 billion is a good start, but for the level it's at, it's going to be, I think, more than 10 billion eventually. And ultimately, it's about Nkrumah. You know what I mean? If he's aiming for like a legacy presidency, ultimately it's about Kwame Nkrumah.
That's the benchmark, huh?
Yes, that's the benchmark because he was really about changing what people believed was possible in Ghana. And so by just setting down this gauntlet, we hope 10 billion is the beginning of something massive.
Right. We're talking $10 billion.
Beginning.
Anyway, let's come through. Of course, if you put that vis-a-vis our GDP, that gives you a certain context, doesn't it? Vicky?
I guess for me it's the flooding.
The flooding.
Yeah, it's a perennial problem and it's 2025, and I think that really it's we need to sort it out because it's claiming lives. People are dying as a result of this flooding, and I think there needs to be some infrastructural, whatever needs to be done, because I understand the development of this anti-flood infrastructure has been stalled for various reasons. So we need to take it a lot more seriously than we do. I mean, of course, every government, as soon as someone dies, or when we go through really bad floods and you have quite a lot of people dying, they come out, they set up the committees, they go and do the visits, they talk a lot about it, and then we all think, okay, the next time when this happens, it's not going to be the same thing, and it is the same thing. So we just need to find a solution to it that works,
Right. Well, what do you think can be done, though? I mean, I'm sure you've been across the world, I know that, but you've lived in Ghana for a long time,
oh, yes.
on and off, sometimes continuously. What do you think we're lacking? What are we missing?
I think we just need to put in place the necessary infrastructure. Isn't that our problem in Africa? It's infrastructural, or one of our major problems is lack of infrastructural development to a certain level. Of course, we have some infrastructure, but we need to take it to a certain level. And in Ghana, you know, we have two major seasons, and the rainy season, it's inescapable. So I think we need to revisit our infrastructure. I don't know whether they are obsolete or they are not there, or a combination of both. But whatever it is, it just cannot be allowed to continue in this way. Ghanaian lives are too precious. And also, quite apart from claiming lives, it also destroys properties. You know, a lot of people don't have insurance, not because they don't want to, but they can't afford it. Some don't even understand how it works, you know, and people lose everything in these floods. So we need to really, really take it seriously, or more seriously than we do at the moment.
Yeah, it can't be situation normal. Amanda,
Absolutely.
let's start with the papers now. Can we start with your paper?
Yeah, the Ghanaian Publisher. I'm going to focus, I think, on.
So give us the you know, the headlines,
Yeah.
all the headlines first from the front page, and
Sure.
then you can
The
select your
Ghanaian
stories.
Publisher talks about Alfred Mahama name pops up in Galamsey activities. It also talks about Dumso exposes grumbler, Jinapur. And Vormawor shows class at IDU, calls for trust amongst global leaders. But I think I'd rather focus on the inside stories. And two of the leading stories as well is the Mpox cases increased to 4 in Ghana. And so Mpox is previously known as monkey pox. Symptoms, in case you come across them, include a rash, fever, swollen lymph nodes, muscle and back pain, headaches, and extreme fatigue. And health experts warn that the disease can be transmitted through direct skin contact, bodily fluids, and in some cases, sexual contacts. But 4 is a big deal in a pandemic scale because, you know, 4 can turn to 8 and 28 and then so forth. And the Coalition Against Galamsey demands prosecution of Akonto Mines. And they're basically saying that Akonto Mines has been operating illegally since 2022, particularly within protected areas, and this is allegedly. And the ministry's own findings provide ample evidence and grounds for criminal prosecution. And this coalition is basically saying partial sanctions is not enough. So those are my 2 main stories.
Interesting thoughts there on, you know, Mpox, and the World Health Organization had to stop using monkeypox because of stigma, you know, especially in our part of the world. Ebola and others come with certain stigmas attached to them, and that's why now we would prefer to use Mpox and just move forward with that. Vicky, it's a bit of a concern, isn't it, that
Yes.
we have these cases and it can have its own debilitating effects, though it's not necessarily fatal.
Yes, it's of great concern. In fact, that's one of the stories I was going to cover as well, because, you know, it's clearly something that must be taken seriously, and is being taken seriously.
It is.
I think we had an outbreak a few years back, and they managed to contain that. So let's pray that they are able to contain this too, because these things have a way of just going viral, and nobody wants to be suffering from Mpox just because you go and shake somebody's hands and maybe it's sweaty and, you know, all the rest of it. So yes, it's something that...
You know, you just unwittingly played on words there. It has a way of going viral. It's a viral infection going viral.
Exactly.
And I was just thinking,
Absolutely.
now I like to stop shaking people's hands because you just mentioned that. I'm going to now stop.
There's something, though, you know, we often talk about wash, water, you know, sanitation, hygiene, and all of that. Long before COVID-19, I do surgical washes whenever I go to that, and I wash often in the day. It's one of the ways we can all, you know, try to avoid some of these, because there's a lot of touching that goes on. And unfortunately, I'm saying this because I've seen it. You go to certain places and people even use washrooms and they don't wash their hands.
Yeah.
And they're out there giving you fist bumps and shaking your hand. So,
and then those who urinate by the roadside still in 2025, you know, they do their whatever, and then they carry on walking because, of course, you don't have water on you. Even if you did, you wouldn't have soap on you. So, you know, and we are a very tactile society, so it doesn't help.
Right.
You know.
Anything else you'd like to add on that? And there's also the bit about Akunta mining. Any thoughts on that, Vicky?
Well, I mean, you know, if there's evidence, if someone, nobody is above the law, right? That's the starting point. And if someone has committed an offense and there's sufficient ground for them to be prosecuted, then they should be prosecuted, whoever it is. So I don't know. I mean, the coalition is saying that they have enough sufficient grounds. If that's the case, then they should go ahead and prosecute. But we don't know is the answer. We really don't know what they have and what they don't have. And if they do have what they say they have, then why have they not been prosecuted?
Interesting
questions. Any thoughts on those?
I think they would have to, you know, keep reading on it and keep it, you know, assessing the evidence in order to do it. But I do think leadership comes from the top. And, you know, even agencies like Ghana Maritime Authority in the last few years has very actively, you know, pursued individuals who enter our space without the right permits, etc., and even gone to the extent of criminal prosecutions. So let alone a national issue such as, you know, our water bodies and different things like that. But I just don't think it's something you enter lightly. You really have to see the evidence, and if you're going to make an example of a company, because, you know, companies have special rights as well.
Indeed.
You'd have to lift the veil of incorporation and go behind it to the officers in particular and different things. So it's something that would have to be thought through, and, you know, the Attorney General would have to look into it seriously, whether this is going to be a test case or not, basically. So I think it's right to take their time before deciding on such a big move.
Right. Any other stories you'd like to highlight for us?
Not in this paper.
Not in this paper. Let's get to your paper, Vicky.
Honestly, okay. I'll read the headlines.
Yes.
First of all, police nab robbery suspect in Togo.
So this is the Daily Guide.
The Daily Guide, yes. I have the Daily Guide. And then, so the guy has been extradited back to Ghana from Togo. 500 written submissions received by the CRC. Africa's digital future must be forged by Baumia. And then the big headline here is Tsikata, or is on the CJ removal. Tsikata, Vormawor, represent petitioners. And then we have the MPOX case, which we have already covered. And a swoop, the editorial is on the migrant beggars in Ghana. And the government, you know, GIS kind of removing them. I think that's it, really. That's what we have. The thing about the migrant beggars is interesting, because we've all seen them, you know, driving, when we're driving by the roadside, and we've seen them, and some of them can be actually quite, you know, most of them are harmless, but I've had situations where I was driving and my windows were up, I didn't put them down, and they were actually banging really hard on the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just tapping, but literally banging with anger. So what the GIS is saying is that I think Nigeria has been on top of this problem now, and so they see Ghana as somewhere where, you know, Ghana has now become the preferred destination here, because they, you know, they feel that, they believe that Ghanaians are generous, and Ghanaians are generous, and so it's taken advantage of the generosity of Ghanaians, and also
the question sometimes then is, how long do you stretch your generosity? Because generosity cannot be endless.
Yes.
Now, there are certain dynamics within the ECOWAS sub-region, as far as I know. Once you're within the sub-region, you can move to another country.
Very easily.
Sometimes even without the necessary
very easily.
transitional documents. But you can stay for 6 months, thereabouts. And beyond 6 months, you become an illegal, you know, immigrant within the sub-region. So you have that
Yes.
window.
Yes.
A lot of them are here in this country beyond 6 months. I listened to some of those who spoke, and they made mention of the fact that, oh, in their country, like Niger, there are problems, and so they are just here to get something to eat. But sometimes it goes beyond getting something to eat.
It goes beyond that. And
It wades into criminality and all of that. So
yes. And a
how
lot
do we
of
address
them,
those?
yeah, a lot of them are from Niger. Apparently, the majority of the beggars, migrant beggars, are from Niger. And as the government rightly pointed out, Niger is no longer part of ECOWAS because while they were in ECOWAS, there was that extra duty. It made it more difficult because you don't want to cause any issues with fellow ECOWAS country citizens. But they no longer are in ECOWAS. So I guess it makes it a little bit easier for the government to make these swoops.
So with these street urchins, the mendicants, if you want to call them that, especially the children, we also have laws. I remember there was a time where Child Rights International, Brighter Pierre, and others were talking about, because these children have rights.
Sure.
They ought to be in school.
Of course.
They don't
yes.
ought to be on the streets. That is those that may be Ghanaian. But even those that are foreigners, they shouldn't be on the streets. So how do we protect all of those? It's a pretty convoluted issue. But I guess, I don't know whether you have a take on that, Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's back to the big push agenda, dealing with youth, employment, unemployment, etc. It can have knock-on effects to disenfranchised groups in terms of people begging and young people begging, etc. But, with this 10 billion big push agenda, housing, road infrastructure, rail, it's all really important. But our future is in the youth. And if over 57% of Ghana is made up of youth, I think a lot of money being invested in them would be helpful, and non-traditional routes where a lot of people can actually feel the benefits long term. The other thing I picked up on with that paper is the thief being returned, the armed robber.
Oh, that's what yeah.
Yes.
That was going to be my second story in my paper.
Okay, so I don't know whether,
Yes.
have you done that story already?
No,
It's not been done yet.
No, you brought it up at the beginning.
So if you're going to that story, then let her read it so
Sure.
that your reaction would then be
Yeah,
more.
so that was actually going to be my second story to cover here.
Yeah.
This guy has been a menace. He's been involved in major criminal activities in East Legon, Cantonment Ridge, Tesano, and Airport Residential Area.
Can you give us more details about, from the
Yes,
story?
so basically, so an armed robbery suspect identified as Adinda Akpo Mujibu has been apprehended in Togo and subsequently transferred to Ghana. So he's someone that was wanted by the Ghana police. And in conjunction with Interpol, collaboration between Interpol Accra and Interpol Lomé, they were able to arrest him in Togo. They knew that he had left the country, and they weren't sure whether he was in Togo or Ivory Coast, or but they knew he was in the ECOWAS region. And through policing, and cooperation with Interpol, they were able to apprehend him and bring him back home. So he's now back here, and he'll be dealt with accordingly. Of course, we are grateful because these kinds of people are a menace to our society, and they have to be dealt with very, very seriously. In no uncertain terms, to be as a deterrent. It's not good enough to think you can do whatever you like and then hop over the border and hide somewhere. And
Right.
maybe before things got so developed, that was possible. But,
Right.
We're in a different age, different era now. And so it's really quite comforting for the citizenry to know that these people can be apprehended, whether or not they are in the original country in which they committed the crimes. Otherwise, they'll probably, sometimes it's a syndicate, You just
They
catch,
are.
yeah, there's a syndicate, and they go from country to country. So they go here, do what they're doing, and then go somewhere else and wait for the dust to settle. And
Right.
then, 2 years later, they
They're
come back, and so it's great. And congratulations to the Ghana police and to Interpol for ridding us of this.
I mean, these syndicates, they sow the seed of terror. And there's something else I want to, about another one, a kidnapping racket. But let me also just, I was monitoring Facebook. It's been a while. We just came online on Facebook. So for those of you who like to monitor us on Facebook, have the live interactions, you can join us there now. We're active now, but we've been active on YouTube. Thank you all for watching. So there's recently something I watched from the Ghana Police Service about this kidnapping incident of some two ladies, and you know, I think this whole romance scam thing, and then they ended up in Nigeria asking for huge sums of money and all of that, and a report, you know, was being given. So these collaborations are happening more, Interpol, and then because this was Ghana tracing, because the kidnappers had asked for account Momo details where money was sent. There was someone active in Ghana. There were others from the other side. And in the end, in collaborating with the Nigerian police force or service, they were able to apprehend the Nigerians involved, which is great stuff.
That's good.
Yes, I mean, the human trafficking unit at CID headquarters, who I know, you know, through work, is excellent, but they are hugely under, I wouldn't say necessarily understaffed, but in terms
logistics,
of logistics,
all through.
Yeah, logistics, you know, is they're not given that much, and you know, sometimes they even have to take out of their own pocket to make sure that somebody is returned to Nigeria, etc. So I think putting more money into units like that who go out of their way to liaise with their counterparts is really important. And in relation to the, you know, the armed robber that has been brought back, I really do think it's so important that the IGP is not just about offences, but preventative measures before these offences take place and to ensure public safety. For instance, in Ajurigano, there's a place called Mana Valley Police Station. And, you know, if you go there, all of a sudden, I mean, that serves all of Ajurigano. Someone has taken the initiative to remove nighttime presence at that police unit. And so it's only daytime. And so things like that, in an area like that, it's preventative to make sure you have nighttime manor police, you know, police officers. And I think, you know, in the IGP coordinating how his officers are doing things like this, it's really important for high target areas to have police at hand, because the locals can take the police's number and in a second that police could be deployed at a house, etc. So it doesn't have to take, you know, going to Togo to get this armed robber back, but necessarily the police were there within 3 minutes because they are stationed there. And so strategic insight and intelligence is so important, not to remove important resources in key areas. And as he follows his mandate, I really think it's important to prevent and detect crime and ensure public safety before, you know, armed robbers strike. So it's a bit close to my heart.
I can see that. I can see that. Let's get some other stories, Vicky, if you have any.
No, I think I'm done for this one.
Okay, before I get into my paper, over the weekend, I mean, I saw a story in respect of the ECOWAS and slapping Ghana with some charges in respect of, you know, the Western Togoland group and how they were detained. It wasn't about the legality or illegality, but about the fact that they were detained for a protracted length of time without certain processes happening. And so Ghana had been slapped with a fine. I think each one was going to get some $2,000+. I think it was upwards of some $75,000 thereabouts. I wanted to pick your brains on this because, you know, sometimes things happen in Ghana and then you are taken to the ECOWAS court and all of that. And
I'm not familiar with that story, actually.
Let me just look up that story. I actually posted it somewhere in there, but it was interesting on the back of ECOWAS sometimes, you know, baring its teeth and doing reparation from time to time. Okay, so let me get into this paper with the headlines, and then Maybe when I find that story, I'll get right into it. So Economy Times now. Blooming economy, boosted investor confidence. Mahama extolled amidst call to sustain gains. CD rebounds from world's worst to best performing currency. And then Ghana to lose out on oil revenue for 2025 as global forecast price falls below $65 per barrel. And those are some of the key stories. But we also wanted to let you know about the weather, what you can expect in the course of the coming days. And we have someone from the Ghana Meteorological Agency, Deputy Director, Joseph Tete Potofi. He joins the conversation. So his proper designation, Deputy Director of Synoptic Meteorology and Forecasting at the GMET. Joseph, good morning. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a privilege having you. Even before we get into what we can expect, yesterday I got on my phone an alert that there was a 70%, 40% chance of this and that. Walk us through what led to those heavy rains, that downpour yesterday.
Yeah, very well. Within the week, we're monitoring it, and it's like there was a lot of moisture in the system from the Guinea coast. And we also have a convective activity around Ghana. So the system moved from south of Lagos, and we're tracking it. And then by grace, around 4 or 5 p.m., it started hitting the coast of Ghana. Not only the coast of Ghana, but there was another one also up in the middle belt. So virtually, it came down, and then that's why we had lightning and thunder, because we have a lot of heat in the system, a lot of energy in the system. There was thundering, there was strong part of the country, and then there was a downpour also.
As the GMET, were you expecting it to be as severe as it was? Some people spoke about massive flooding. Even this morning, en route to work, some places where still you had to drive slowly because of pools of water. Were you expecting it to be this strong?
Very well, because when we look at the moisture level and then the convective nature of it, we knew if it comes and it stays for the next 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, it will create flooding in some areas. Yeah.
And it did. It also knocked off or knocked out power in some areas. But now moving on, what can we expect this week? We are in the first. We've just got outside of the first quarter of the year. What can we expect in May, and especially this week?
Yes, this week, for today, along the coast, because a lot of energy has been taken out of the system, we are not expecting much along the coast. But Axim will get something. Then the middle belt from Hood, Tsikata, Kumasi, Odan, Techiman, and Indebaron, by the close of the hour, around from 2 to 3 o'clock, they are expecting to get some heavy rain. The forest in the southern sectors, no. In the northern part of the country, yes. Somewhere in Boko and areas, we are also expecting to get something small there. Yes. Currently, we are getting into the peak of our rainy season, so people should be careful. Yeah.
We are getting to the peak of the rainy season.
Yes. Yes.
So the peak for the first phase, right? Because there's a second belt from around September, right?
Very well. So the peak will, when we get into June is the peak of the rainy season. And once we are getting this heavy rain, it means the land and every place is to be saturated. And when they get saturated, any little that flash flood, yes, because we have developed, especially those of us in the city, have paved our houses, have concrete our houses. So whilst the little land surface that is there, and cover that is there, is saturated, we should expect a lot of flash floods. Yes. And unfortunately, our tests are not people as at now, because we need to expand them. So any little rain definitely will cause a flash flood. That's happened yesterday.
Okay, I'll just need you to speak up a bit. I've been losing you a little. Just finally, you mentioned that the coastal belt there'll not be that much rain. But then you mentioned Aksim in the western region. So just give us hot spots that likely will be experiencing some rain in the course of this week, if you can do that for us.
Yes, as I said, Aksim, because Aksim is a forested area. So once it's a forested area, yes, any little moisture go up, it comes down. The hilly areas, mountainous areas, and the forested areas in the country will experience something today. But for us in Accra, yes, by the close of Wednesday, Thursday, we should expect another rain in Accra. Yeah.
But not today. When I look at my...
No, not today. Today, no.
Today?
For the coastal areas today, no. We are not expecting anything.
Okay. Google is alerting me that today in Accra, there's a 40% chance of a thunder shower. Well, I guess nature will take its course. We're grateful, sir, for your time with us.
Thank you very much.
This morning. Thank you so much. That is Joseph Tete Potofi. He's Deputy Director at the GMET, and he joined the conversation. The rains, again, we've been talking about the rains and everything in between. Did you sleep through it, or did you feel it for real? Were you returning from... You didn't even hear it?
No, I didn't hear it.
Wow, good for you. You know, when it happens like this, a lot of people, especially those using public transport, you're trying to now find your way back home and all of that from church or from other economic activities, and it can be terrible sometimes.
Yes. I mean, I slept. I was fine, but it was quite noisy.
It was.
Yes.
Let's get into the stories I started with. And blooming economy boosted investor confidence, Mahama extolled amidst call to sustain gains. So several economists, analysts, and the business community have appreciated the President John Mahama administration for the remarkable and unprecedented turnaround of the economy in the first 120 days of his government. The key stakeholders of the Ghanaian economy, including ordinary citizens, have all been amazed and jubilant as the local currency, that is the cedi, in the past weeks appreciated against the US dollar and other foreign currencies amidst tax cuts and notable governance reforms. A managing partner of Confidence, an advisory firm, Michael Koto, noted a steady recovery in business confidence following a prolonged period of economic turbulence. He pointed out that past economic challenges such as inflation, the domestic debt exchange program, currency instability and turmoil in the banking sector had severely impacted the economy. And Mike, a very good morning to you as well, Michael Koto of Confidence. Then the cedi rebounds from world's worst to best performing currency. In a remarkable turnaround, the Ghana cedi has emerged as the world's best performing currency in 2025, according to data from Bloomberg, appreciating nearly 16% against the US dollar since April and trading at 13 cedis and 20 pesos as of early May 2025. This resurgence marks a stark contrast to its status as the worst performing currency in 2022, when it lost over 55% of its value. I'll end it there. And you're in the business community as well, the legal community, the business community. How are you feeling the impact of this? Because sometimes when we read these stories, people say, yes, but what is the impact on the ordinary Kwame, the ordinary Ama? I'll start with you, Vicky.
Well, I mean, look, it's a good thing. And I think, first of all, the president and the finance minister should be commended, and the Bank of Ghana as well. You know, it's always a good thing when the currency is just not running, wild, because it helps businesses to plan better, et cetera, et cetera. There is a combination of factors that have led to this point. And of course, in addition to the policies that the government has introduced, there have also been good things like the price of gold and cocoa and the increments in remittances and all the rest of it. They have also, the FX injection timings, and then some of the fiscal reforms that have come about as a result of the IMF debt restructuring process. So it's good. I was reading that someone bought Kinky for 3 cedis, and so that's a direct impact for us businesses. Because I don't think Kinky has been 3 cedis for a long time. So he was like, "Hey, Mahama, because."
I mean, the least I have encountered is about 5 cedis.
Yes, exactly.
That's the least I have encountered.
the guy showed up and he was pleasantly surprised because the Kenke lady said it's 3 cities now. And he was like, wait.
Where was this? Do you know where?
I don't know where it was. I think people will rush there. But so that's a very happy Ghanaian citizen. And I think for businesses as well, it helps with planning. And it helps us because, when the currency is just not going in the right direction, the impact on businesses can be quite debilitating. And so personally, I'm happy. There are other factors. The problem, not problem, because I want to be optimistic about this. What we have to do is to sustain it. So I think sustainability is the thing that we have to think about, because there are some outside influences, as I said earlier, and also the US is weakening against the other major currencies. And of course, all these things are benefiting us as well.
But it started, gaining strength again on the back of the China-America
exactly.
90-day hold.
90-day hold.
So now we are seeing, and the hope is that it will not impact the appreciation that
yes, and also, of course, our ratings as a country has gone up.
Indeed.
We're SD status now, we're CCC+. So we're heading in the right side. Hopefully we'll be in the B soon. So I'm very excited about it. I'm happy to see this happening. And congratulations to the President and the Finance Ministry for doing this. And Gold Board, of course, is another reason.
It's also good to mention that as we congratulate them when these things happen,
oh, yes.
If it goes the other way, if it goes south, you must carry that one too.
Absolutely.
You go carry out.
Yes, because we will feel the heat, We will feel the heat. So,
most definitely.
Yes.
Amanda?
I think the President and particularly the Minister of Finance has done a phenomenal job, particularly because it echoes internationally and it's recognized internationally, and the average Ghanaian is beginning to feel that. But I think with every major shift, one also has to be optimistic, but also look at the fact that it will take us at least 2 months to see if this is sustainable in terms of, the prices remain the same or improve in
within
2
a
months.
quarter.
Yes,
we'll
within
have
2
bird's
months
eye view,
to a
proper.
quarter. So we should definitely work towards that. And I think, the $350 million coming from IMF very soon helped us in some way, in terms of get this rating up, as well as the US trade war and the phenomenal job that's being done with the gold board in terms of it is an idea to try and hold gold at a high level and to sort of platform our gold, etc. But honestly, my personal view on that is that, the government cannot forget the stakeholders in the gold industry in terms of the ones who are losing licenses to gain licenses with Gold Board, and they are the ones who want to get on their feet to export quite quickly in terms of within the next month or two. So those sort of practical parts also need to be rolled out so that as many people who are involved with legal exportation can do so in the short space of time. But I think, CCC+ is a great rating, and Ghanaians are feeling it in their pocket, but we should wait 2-3 months.
Are you feeling it in your pocket?
I'm losing out a little because of it, really.
Because you're bleeding dollars to Ghana cedis, right?
I don't know, but I'm losing out a little. But I'm happy for the country, and because I am a Ghanaian as well.
Yeah.
And
that smile on your face, like I'm a Ghanaian, but I'm bleeding, but Charlie, how you go do them? So word on the street is that Atto is forcing. Atto is forcing. And I mean, I've been reading posts on X, they're playing on the name Atto is forcing and all of that. We just pray for sustained gains. And for some people, it's not so much of, because I also read a certain bank's report. I don't want to, for the sake of mention it, but they were also saying that this could be somewhat too much of an appreciation. Like China, sometimes the economy is especially tweaked to weaken the currency for good reason, because there are benefits to the entire system. And some in the banking industry feel it's too much of an appreciation, and that even looking at the metrics, it would be more stable around 14.6 thereabouts by close of year. You get it.
It is a
But
bit
I
of a
think
bubble.
it's a good development.
It is a bit of a bubble, but we can't forget that, Ghana is the largest exporter of gold on the African continent, and we are a leading producer of gold. And once we start implementing these new policies, look like we're sticking to it, migrate everybody on the gold board licensing, and truly mean it that we really want to get top dollar for that gold, etc., it does have market effects, I think. But, let's wait to see 2-3 months. But too good is better than too bad. So.
And also, with the gold board, 20% of gold export proceeds have to be converted into Ghana cedis.
Right.
So I think that would significantly
That is definitely
help.
something that will help.
Yes, exactly.
And you would see that it's also helping clamp down on some of the smuggling. I'm sure you
Absolutely.
saw that racket, that syndicate in recent times. I think there's some, is it Indians or Chinese who recently were nabbed?
Yes.
Indians.
Yes.
Indians. And
yes.
I think it's also making it a little less comfortable for some of the nefarious elements in the system to smuggle out our gold. Because as much as, I always go back to this, there have been years where we say we've exported X quantity of gold and secured Y amounts, and yet one country, let's say the UAE, Dubai, the UAE will say, we imported this much from Ghana. So where was the rest of it, and who accounted for
exactly
that? It means smuggling.
Exactly.
But the thing is, the smuggling might get worse if we don't take care of our stakeholders in terms of those who can legally export. That's the irony. It's a double-edged sword, because those who legally export want to quickly be migrated on this gold board licensing system in a way that they can just move the gold.
Right.
And if they don't, the smuggling will increase.
But if you want to get migrated, the Gold Board Act specifies what you have to do. Comply,
Yes,
and you'll be
exactly.
able to
Yes,
go through
I know,
the process.
but some of the criteria, I think there's a 2-tier system where not all the licenses are available now. It takes till July for the rest of the licenses to be available. But things like smelting...
But are some of those who have been in the system who will merely be rolled over? They just have to go through
but for
again.
instance, things like smelting of gold is elementary to those who export gold. And I think that license comes up in June or July. But they need to have a smelting license. You see what I mean? So everything needs to be put in place so that all the licenses are available and they export legally. Otherwise, we'll see an increase of smuggling, basically.
Another thing, I do recall when the US aid was plugged up, and it was made mention that we wouldn't get, I think it was about 150 to 170 million that we got, and with the various US aid projects.
Yes.
And the finance minister was tasked by the president to find a way of getting around that and ensuring that we didn't feel the impact of that too much. It will be interesting to find out how we fared. At least from the optics, it looks good.
Yes.
But on the ground, US aid projects and all of that, how are things going? Let me conclude on, were you going to say something?
No. I'm good.
All right. Ghana to lose out on oil revenue for 2025 as global forecast price falls below $65 per barrel. And the world market price of crude oil is forecast to fall, this bit about forecasted, not English. It's forecast to fall to about $64 a barrel this year, as against $80.7 per barrel in 2024. The World Bank and its Commodity Markets Outlook report has indicated. But let me just get to the back page on the other page on it. It says expected. It's expected to exert substantial downward pressure on the total commodity index in 2025 as a marked slowdown in global oil consumption coincides with expanding supply. So you know the metrics in economics. Higher demand, then you know what happens to the price. Lower demand, then you know what happens to the price as well. So any quick reflections on that?
No.
No thoughts? Then let me get to inflation. So on page 5, inflation to fall further as global food inflation expected to decline. It's a story by Adnan Adams Mohammed. So Ghana's rate of inflation declined to 21.2% in April 2025. That's the latest and the lowest in 8 months. The improvement from the 22.4% recorded in March reflects the 5th consecutive month of disinflation. I'm always careful with this word, but that's what the paper has chosen to use. This means consumer prices fell by 0.8% percent month on month during the period under review, as analysts attribute the improvement to a stronger local currency, which has helped curb import-related price pressures. And let me see whether I can... Ghana's telecom sector suffers over 5,600 fiber cuts in 2025. There's talk about the big push. Mahama sets $10 billion target for non-traditional exports by 2030. And then Professor Lord Mensah appointed head of local government service. Congratulations to you, sir. Regular panelist here from time to time. And I think that will be it for this bit. Ghana's gold reserves jump over 31 tons in April 2025. If you have any reactions, I'll take them before I, excuse me, do the BNFT. Any thoughts? All right, so in the BNFT, Fan Milk celebrates 65 years of spreading joy. AI, innovation and youth at the heart of AMC Tycon Africa 2025 agenda. Fuel bill to reach $1 billion in 2025. And mandatory licensing for scrap dealers by year end. GISDEC moves to regulate sector amid rising concerns. I just want to look at that story and the fuel bill story. So Ghana could spend more than $1 billion on liquid fuel to keep its thermal power plants running in 2025. Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, has said as rising electricity demand is expected to grow by 300 megawatts each year. He described the range of fuel products to include diesel, light crude oil, and heavy fuel oil, that is HFO. And that's, of course, $1 billion we're talking there. Then on the mandatory licensing for scrap dealers by year end, the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation has begun efforts to bring order to the multi-billion cedi scrap metal industry with plans to introduce a mandatory licensing regime targeting scrap dealers and exporters. The new regulation is intended to curb theft, environmental damage, reduce tax evasion, and protect national infrastructure, which officials say has increasingly come under threat from unregulated scrap dealers. And you know, sometimes even our traffic lights, street lights, they'll go and cut a few things. Even the railings, yes. I've seen people cut and try and use them for scrap. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a sector that's been ignored for a long time, and it's attracted all sorts of characters, and I think government has also consequently lost a lot of revenue in that sector. So, and they have caused a lot of damage. You just gave one example, which actually impact heavily on all of us, one way or the other. It's a railway scrap and all sorts of things that people are interfering with. So I think it's something that's to be welcomed. And it's long overdue. So I'm very happy about that. I remember, back in the day when I was a public servant, we were talking about scrap, and then people are not supposed to be exporting scrap, but they always find their way to doing that, So I think, it has to be. I'm glad that it's being regulated to rein in some of these delinquent characters who have found their way into it. So yeah, mandatory licensing, I'm saying yes, the minister should hurry up and do it.
Right. Amanda?
Yeah, mandatory licensing is really good, as well as, tougher sanctions and just a clampdown on anybody who's doing this illegally on a mass scale, just to make an example of them.
Just to make an example of them.
Yes.
The story I was looking for, I have found now. So the ECOWAS Court of Justice has ordered the government of Ghana to pay $75,000 in damages to 30 members of the Homeland Study Group Foundation over their prolonged and unlawful detention. The judgment, delivered on Friday, that is this past Friday, at the Osborne Foreshore Court in Ikoyi, Lagos State, in suit number, it's quite a long one, declared that the Ghanaian authorities violated the applicants' fundamental human rights by detaining them for extended periods, some for over a year without trial or due process. Each of the 30 applicants is to receive $2,500 in Ghanaian cedi equivalents as compensation, the judge ruled. And that was Justice Ricardo Gonsalves, alongside Justices Shengu M. Koroma and Dupe Atoki. Quick thoughts on that? That was the story I was referencing.
Oh,
earlier.
right, okay. So what, these are people who are suspected of committing a crime and they've just been detained, or what?
So they were
Yes, so it was
advocating-
about this whole bit about some secession,
Yeah.
creating Western
the Western
Togoland.
Togoland
Exactly.
guys,
But
yes,
per the ruling, some of them were held for protracted lengths of time, up to a year, without due process.
Well, that is wrong, obviously. You cannot, freedom is it's a very cherished thing. And if you're going to detain someone, then you need to follow through the due process to make sure whatever it is you want to, the reason for detaining them is being investigated. And they are released as soon as possible if they are found not to be culpable in any way. So yes, I don't have any problems with that.
Amanda.
Well, I mean, of course, Ghana has sovereignty in terms of we have the right to set out our own laws, but I think the court ruled that this was a direct violation of not only Ghanaian laws but international standards, and they
Especially on human rights.
on human rights, and they quoted, I think, Article 6 of the African Charter, which is the right to acquire nationality. And so, if you hold someone for a prolonged period of time, for a year without due process or full due process, it is something that Ghana shouldn't repeat again, I think, because not only will it attract sanctions, but this sort of global attention, etc., and to maybe even showcase what their fight is, because maybe none of us would be talking about that they were advocating for the independence of Western Togoland if this decision hadn't been reached.
Of course, we also know the consequences when it comes to secession.
Yes.
Yes.
The Basque, look at the
Yes.
Basque region
The
in
Basque
Spain, for
separatists,
example.
Yes,
and,
yes. And also $2,500. I mean, if you've been detained for a year.
It's a pittance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not really
But at least
very much.
something is better
it's
than
symbolic.
nothing.
But something is
It's
very
symbolic.
better than nothing, yes. So
I have a message from Reverend Jones Latte. He says, good morning. Permit me to compare Ghana and Jamaica with particular reference to erratic electricity supply. Jamaica has not got all the rich mineral resources Ghana has. Jamaica does not have an erratic electricity system. Ghana has. Maybe our government should seek advice from Jamaica on how to keep the power on forever. But Reverend Jones Latte, I have never been in Jamaica, so I decided to conduct a bit of a check on Google. And what I'm seeing points to the fact that they also have erratic electricity supply, some as recent as 2024. And in fact, there's a plethora of documentation on that. So I guess we just have to get our act together. I don't know whether Jamaica is the best example, but there we are with that one. Maybe we'll just wrap with a few stories on myjoyonline.com, some headlines there, and then we can call it wrap. Okay, so there we are. You are not powering an 8-hour economy, but promising 24 hours. Professor Bokbin on energy sector failure. For some reason, I can't connect to the internet now, so I'll rely on what we are all seeing there. And there's also NADMO confirms no casualties from Sunday's heavy rains. Africa's time is now. Baumia inspires with digital vision at Cambridge conference. Then there is also ECG's collection losses at 15%, distribution at 40%, not sustainable. Professor Bokpin warns. Okay, so those are some of the stories on myjoyonline.com. You can check them out for more of those. I'll take your final thoughts, ladies, and then it's a wrap. Starting with you, Amanda.
I guess my focus is on the IGP. And
why?
Because it's with crime, it's not just the aftermath. It is being preventative beforehand. And I think it's about intelligence and being strategic. And so if you have to open up local police stations who previously had nighttime police presence in areas that need it, you can't take that away and then deal with the aftermath afterwards. So I think, they should be very strategic. And, your headline just now, you're not powering an 8-hour economy, but promising 24 hours. And he describes the state of Ghana's energy sector as one of the biggest threats to economic stability. So as we celebrate, how well the CD is doing, we have to maintain that economic stability with basic things like light and just rain not affecting light.
Right. Vicky, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's really something we didn't really cover. This ECG privatization of the distribution and the collection. I think we all know that ECG hasn't functioned well for a long time. It's a systemic crisis. And I think, you know, privatization per se is not the answer unless it comes within a certain framework. So things like putting in place the necessary contractual arrangements, making sure underperformance is punished, that consumers don't lose out with higher tariffs, etc., etc. It's something that I hope makes the headline so that we can delve into it properly. So for now, this is all I'll say, that there are problems there. They are systematic in nature. We saw this, you know, the container getting missing. We have distribution losses, collection losses, you know, whatever, technology losses, transmission losses, all over the place. So I hope we get a chance to delve into it properly another time.
Thank you, Vicky. Na Manua says, I was listening to your guest talking about someone saying they bought Kenke for 3 cedis. It could be true, but let's look at the size. It will make you laugh. So I went to a local restaurant with some friends, and I ordered banku and okra stew. After almost 45 minutes, here comes the waiter with the food. I checked mine, and I couldn't believe my eyes about the size of the micro banku fit for a child. So I asked if it was a kid's menu, but it wasn't. So what's the size of the ball of Kenke? That's what Naaman
We need the guy to tell us.
We'll leave him.
It was the healthy option.
It was a healthy option. Well, let's start in your body and all of that. Belated happy birthday to Abigail Jamfi. Abigail Jamfi, you celebrated your birthday over the weekend. We're so proud of you. We thank the Lord for where He's taking you. We love you, Mommy. Take care of yourself, and God be with you always. Abigail Jamfi, belated happy birthday to you. And that's how we cap off our news review. Those who joined us, Victoria Bright, she's a lawyer and entrepreneur. Amanda Clinton is head of Chambers at Clinton Consultancy. She's also a lawyer. Stick and stay. We'll be bringing you crucial conversations, including that leap, right? We'll be bringing you details of that right here on the AM Show. We'll be back.